Hello, friends. Welcome back to Whispers of Time. Today, we begin a calm and meaningful journey, not just through history, but through the mindset that builds discipline, patience, and inner strength. This story is designed to train your listening, sharpen your focus, and quietly strengthen your self-discipline as you follow along. Long before America became a powerful nation, before cities, borders, or flags existed, this land was already home. Around 15,000 years ago, Native American tribes lived here. They were the first people to walk this land, guided by survival, routine, and balance with nature. They hunted, gathered food, respected the seasons, and passed wisdom from one generation to the next. Their lives were built on consistency, doing what was necessary every single day to survive. History often moves slowly, and discipline grows the same way. Much later, in 1492, an Italian explorer named Christopher Columbus crossed the ocean. His goal was not America. He was searching for a faster route to Asia. But persistence, uncertainty, and months at sea led him somewhere unexpected. His journey, supported by Spain's royal family, brought Europe's attention to a new continent. Columbus believed he had reached India, which is why he mistakenly named the native people Indians. Yet even before him, Viking explorers led by Leif Erikson had reached parts of North America. Their presence faded, but Columbus's voyage changed the world. History often remembers not the first, but the one who refuses to turn back. After this moment, European nations began arriving one after another. Spain, France, and England sent ships across the ocean, each driven by ambition and discipline, masked as desire for power. Spain focused on Central and South America, chasing gold and silver. England and France looked north, planting the seeds of future colonies. These newcomers brought tools, animals, and new ideas, but also disease and destruction. Native populations suffered greatly. Progress, when rushed without wisdom, often leaves scars behind. In 1607, England built its first lasting settlement, Jamestown in Virginia. Life there was unforgiving. Hunger, illness, and harsh winters tested the settlers daily. Many failed. Some survived only by learning patience, cooperation, and routine. Survival demanded discipline. Not long after, another group crossed the ocean, the Pilgrims. In 1620, they sailed on the Mayflower, escaping religious pressure, searching for freedom to live by their beliefs. Their first year was brutal. Cold, hunger, and uncertainty nearly destroyed them. Help from Native Americans saved them, and gratitude turned into what we now remember as Thanksgiving. By the 1700s, America began to represent opportunity. People arrived believing that effort could shape destiny. 13 colonies formed along the eastern coast, each different in lifestyle and values. In the north, communities relied on shared responsibility, small farms, fishing, and craftsmanship. In the middle colonies, fertile land produced grain, earning the name the breadbasket. In the south, large plantations grew wealthy crops, but relied on enslaved Africans, creating one of the darkest chapters in human history. Daily life was demanding. Families worked from sunrise to sunset. Children helped, not by choice but by necessity. Education was rare. Comfort was limited, yet hope remained. People believed discipline and sacrifice could lead to a better future. Even so, freedom was incomplete. Though far from England, The colonies were controlled by it. King George III imposed laws and heavy taxes, while colonists had no voice in decisions. Slowly, frustration grew. The phrase, "no taxation without representation," spread, not shouted, but repeated again and again until it became belief. In 1773, quiet anger turned into action during the Boston Tea Party. Protesters destroyed shipments of British tea, sending a clear message: patience had limits. What followed was not sudden. It was the result of years of pressure, routine resistance, and inner resolve. By 1775, conflict became unavoidable. Ordinary people, farmers, workers, shopkeepers, stood against one of the strongest empires on earth. They were not prepared. They were not powerful. But they were disciplined in their belief. George Washington led the colonial army with endurance rather than force. Thomas Jefferson put words to courage in the Declaration of Independence, declaring that people are born with the right to life, liberty, and purpose. The war was long, supplies were scarce, defeat was common, yet belief remained steady. With help from France, and through persistence rather than strength, victory finally came. In 1783, the United States became an independent nation. Freedom had been claimed, but the work was only beginning. True discipline is not proven at the moment of victory. It is revealed in what comes next. Freedom had been won, but freedom alone was not enough. After independence, the new nation faced a quiet but difficult question. How do you govern yourself when no one is controlling you? Discipline is always hardest when rules are no longer forced from outside. America's leaders understood this. They gathered to create a system that would guide the country not through fear, but through structure. The result was the Constitution, a set of principles designed to balance power, protect rights, and demand responsibility. It was not perfect, but it was intentional. Every word was chosen carefully, knowing the future would depend on it. George Washington became the first president, not as a king, but as a servant to the people. When he stepped down voluntarily after 2 terms, he showed the world that true leadership requires restraint. Discipline is not holding on to power. It is knowing when to let go. As the country stabilized, ambition grew. Americans looked west and saw possibility, land, opportunity, and a future shaped by effort rather than birth. In 1803, the Louisiana Purchase doubled the nation's size overnight. The land was vast, unknown, and dangerous, but it called to those willing to endure hardship. Explorers Lewis and Clark were sent into the wilderness. Their journey was long and uncertain. They crossed rivers, mountains, and endless plains. They survived not through speed, but through planning, patience, and persistence. With guidance from a Native American woman, Sacagawea, they proved that progress often depends on learning from others rather than dominating them. Soon, families followed. Covered wagons rolled westward. The idea of manifest destiny took hold, the belief that expansion was inevitable. But inevitability does not excuse cruelty. Native American tribes were forced from their lands. Traditions were shattered, and entire cultures were pushed aside. Progress without discipline becomes destruction. As America expanded, its economy grew, but so did its contradictions. The southern states depended on agriculture, and that system depended on enslaved labor. Millions of Africans were taken from their homes, transported across oceans, and treated as property. Their lives were controlled, their families separated, their humanity denied. Slavery was not just an economic system, it was a failure of moral discipline. By the mid-1800s, the nation was divided. The North believed slavery must end. The South believed it must continue. Each side became rigid, convinced it was right. When flexibility disappears, conflict becomes inevitable. Voices rose against slavery. Harriet Tubman risked her life repeatedly, guiding others to freedom through secret paths and safe houses. Frederick Douglass transformed suffering into words that shook the conscience of a nation. Harriet Beecher Stowe used storytelling to awaken empathy where arguments had failed. Still, tension continued to build. In 1861, the country fractured. Southern states broke away, forming the Confederacy. What followed was the Civil War, the most painful chapter in American history. Brother fought brother. Towns were destroyed. Families were broken. Discipline was tested not in routine, but in endurance. President Abraham Lincoln led with clarity and moral resolve. In 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring freedom for enslaved people in rebellious states. It was not the end, but it changed the meaning of the war. When the conflict ended in 1865, slavery was abolished completely. Freedom was written into law through the 13th Amendment. Yet freedom on paper did not mean freedom in life. Reconstruction followed, a fragile attempt to rebuild not just cities, but trust. African Americans gained citizenship and voting rights. For a brief moment, hope seemed real. Schools opened, voices were heard, but resistance returned. Jim Crow laws enforced segregation. Violence and discrimination replaced progress. Discipline without justice became oppression once again. Still, the seed had been planted. In the late 1800s, America transformed rapidly. Machines replaced manual labor. Factories rose, railroads stretched across the continent. Electricity lit the night. Communication became instant. The Industrial Revolution reshaped daily life. Millions of immigrants arrived, stepping onto American soil with nothing but belief. They worked long hours in dangerous conditions, chasing the promise that effort could change fate. Many failed, some succeeded, all endured. Workers organized, unions formed, tragedies exposed injustice. Slowly, laws improved. Progress came not through comfort, but through persistence. By the early 1900s, America stood taller on the world stage. Its factories fed global markets. Its influence expanded beyond its borders. The Spanish-American War marked the beginning of global responsibility and global consequences. As power increased, so did responsibility. And as history shows, responsibility without discipline leads to imbalance. Ahead lay global wars, economic collapse, and movements that would reshape identity itself. The nation would be tested not by growth, but by crisis, and it would discover that self-discipline, whether personal or national, is not built in moments of success, but in how one responds to struggle. By the early 20th century, America stood at a turning point. The nation had grown fast, sometimes too fast. Cities expanded, machines replaced hands, and life began to move at a pace no generation before had experienced. Progress was everywhere, yet stability was fragile. Then, in 1929, the illusion shattered. The stock market collapsed almost overnight. Banks closed their doors. Savings disappeared. Millions lost their jobs without warning. Families who once believed they were secure now struggled just to eat. Streets filled with uncertainty, and hope became something people whispered about, not something they expected. This period became known as the Great Depression. It tested the nation in a way no war had. There was no enemy to fight, only fear, hunger, and doubt. Survival no longer depended on ambition, but on discipline. People learned to live with less. They learned patience. They learned how to endure long days without reward. In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt became president. Instead of promising instant solutions, he offered structure. Through calm radio speeches, he spoke directly to the people, reminding them that fear itself was the greatest danger. His New Deal programs created jobs, restored confidence, and slowly rebuilt the economy. Progress was not fast, but it was steady, and steady effort, repeated daily, is the core of discipline. Just as the nation began to recover, another storm approached. In Europe and Asia, aggression was spreading. America hoped distance would offer protection, but history rarely allows neutrality to last. On December 7, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor changed everything. The nation was pulled into World War II. This time, discipline became collective. Factories transformed overnight, producing weapons instead of consumer goods. Citizens rationed food and fuel. Women entered factories and shipyards, proving strength had never been limited by gender. Families sent loved ones to war with no guarantee of return. In 1944, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy. The cost was enormous. Courage was demanded not once, but again and again. In 1945, the war finally ended. Victory brought relief, but also responsibility. America emerged as a global power. Yet peace did not bring simplicity. A new kind of conflict followed, the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union stood on opposite sides of ideology. There were no constant battles, but constant tension. Power was measured through influence, technology, and belief systems. The competition reached beyond Earth itself. The space race captured the world's imagination. Years of research, failure, and persistence led to a historic moment in 1969 when American astronauts walked on the moon. It was proof that discipline applied patiently could achieve what once seemed impossible. At the same time, the threat of destruction loomed. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world came dangerously close to nuclear war. Restraint, negotiation, and calm decision-making prevented catastrophe. Sometimes discipline means knowing when not to act. While America faced the world, it was also forced to face itself. Racism and inequality continued to divide the nation. Promises of freedom had not reached everyone. African Americans demanded justice not in words, but in action. Through boycotts, marches, and peaceful resistance, they challenged a system that had denied them dignity. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of dreams rooted in discipline, nonviolence, persistence, and moral clarity. Progress came slowly, often painfully. But laws changed. Segregation was challenged. Voting rights were protected. Each step forward was earned, not given. In the years that followed, America continued to struggle and evolve. The Vietnam War tested trust in leadership. Economic shifts created uncertainty, yet innovation never stopped. Computers changed how people worked. The internet reshaped communication. Technology accelerated life once again. Immigrants continued to arrive, carrying hope, ambition, and resilience. Diversity became both a challenge and a strength. Today, America remains influential not because it is flawless, but because it adapts. Its economy drives innovation. Its culture reaches across borders. Its universities attract minds from every corner of the world. Yet modern challenges remain. Inequality persists. Healthcare is costly. Environmental concerns grow. Political division tests unity. These problems cannot be solved with speed or emotion alone. They require discipline. Discipline to listen before reacting. Discipline to work consistently without applause. Discipline to improve systems instead of abandoning them. America's story teaches us that greatness is not built in moments of excitement, but in long periods of effort. The nation falls, learns, and rises again, not through perfection, but through persistence. This is why the story continues to inspire, because discipline, whether personal or national, is not a single decision. It is a habit, a quiet choice made daily. And as the future unfolds, that choice remains. Silent, steady, unfinished.